Verse 719. By the separation of mind from what belongs to it, the present world evolves. Various forms are inseparably conjoined with one another. Matter is mind, and is not element made. So by the separation of mind from what belongs to it. So what belongs to mind? What belongs to mind and is being separated from it? Well, there are a couple of answers which come to mind, which I'll look into. One fairly obvious and one perhaps a little more subtle. But it's this separation by which the present world evolves. And the present world is the world that we inhabit. And the world we inhabit isn't some kind of neutral, objective stage. The world we inhabit is something that we've got certain feelings about. It's one that actually generates certain feelings in us. And one of these feelings is very much likely to be anxiety. The world, the present world, the world we inhabit, is a world which can produce anxiety and fear. Because we're in this world and we have to survive in it. This means generating an income and perhaps protecting ourselves from hostile forces. So this could be the world that we inhabit. Even if you've got a lot of money, you still might be very anxious about money, and you feel the need to keep finding ways to generate more money. So this is anxiety. Or it may be you're quite comfortable and the world is a lovely place and your health is pretty good. Perhaps you're quite a handsome person and people are attracted to you. And in general, your world is a rather nice place. Maybe you don't have to worry too much about money because you've got plenty of it. So this is the present world, this is the world we inhabit. It can have any amount of different flavours to it. And perhaps it's not consistent, perhaps it varies, perhaps the world you inhabit varies, perhaps even through the course of a day. So this world we inhabit, this world that evolves, is one that is dependent on our own personal outlook, our own sensibilities. And this is where the mind comes in. The mind we inhabit determines the nature of the world we inhabit. And the mind we inhabit consists of our thoughts, our views, our understanding, and that is fueled by our feelings. It's when we separate these two that the world evolves, when we separate our feelings from our thoughts and assume that our thoughts have some objective reality of their own, well, that's when the world evolves. Just to clarify, it's like when we've gone to see a movie and we've really enjoyed it, and we'll come out and we'll say, that was a good movie. You might recommend it to a friend and say how wonderful that movie was. Whereas what you're really saying is, you liked it. You liked it. So this is a separation. You enjoyed the movie, and that translates into the objective statement that this is a good movie. So we've got that separation, you see, between the subjective experience and the objective evolution, to use the language of the verse. And this is what's going on all the time. The feelings are part of the mind. They're part of a dynamic. But we separate the feelings from our thoughts, from the thoughts which fuel these feelings, from the feelings which fuel these thoughts, and we come up with an understanding of the world we inhabit, of the present world. I wonder if you might indulge me. I had an experience last night which exemplifies this to some extent. I went to a meeting. It's not the sort of thing I particularly wanted to go to, but a friend of mine who seems quite tuned in and whose opinion I respect was encouraging me to come to this meeting. It was called the Circle of Love. And I didn't have a good feeling about it, but I thought there'll be some nice people there, it'd be good to get out, and who knows, I might be pleasantly surprised. And it was in a nice room, and there were some nice people, not that many, maybe about 20 or so. And I think the event seemed to centre around 4 people. There was a young man and 3 middle-aged ladies. And I think the young man was the main force here. And after a little guided meditation, the rest of the meeting seems to consist of questions. One of the ladies she had a folder of questions, and she would choose one of the other 2 or 3 to answer the question. It was mainly the young man who answered the questions. And the questions were quite random, like, what does it mean to be human, and what is going to happen to the world when it becomes overpopulated or whatever. And the young man, who was a friend of my friend, which is why I think he was encouraging me to go along to give some support, I could see he had a certain energy in him, and there was possibly something quite unusual about it. He definitely had a certain energy coming through him. This is where he was coming from. This was firing him up. He was very fluent, very articulate. And the general tone seemed to be about changing the world for the better. He was giving his opinion, and it was very much in terms of how we're all energies manifesting or something, and how we could change the world for the better. Perhaps if everybody didn't vote or something, he seemed to think that this was a way ahead if everybody didn't vote. And he seemed to think we're being run by non-human intelligences. He didn't mention giant alien lizards, which was a bit of a relief. Anyway, it was a bit disappointing, and I slipped away at the tea break. But I just kind of wondered what everybody was getting into here. What was the point of this meeting? It was like everybody was caught up in some sort of spell. Perhaps it was the spell of this young man's energy. But this was his feelings. His energy was his feeling. It seemed to me this is something he's going to have to work with. Very powerful energy he's got coming through him, perhaps predisposing him to a certain mysticism. But this was the classic example of mind separating from what belongs to it. It really was this feeling which he should really be working with and staying with. But instead he's generating all these words from it. Generating all these words. Generating all these ideas. And it was a bit peculiar because at the beginning of the meeting, at the beginning of this meditation, we were asked to be listening with our hearts and not our heads. And yet it seemed to be very much about the head. The questions were quite random and very much head questions, and the answers were on the same level. So it was very much the head masquerading as the heart. I found it quite disturbing, actually. Perhaps I should have taken some cocodamol before going. Maybe it wouldn't have bothered me so much. But I did find it quite disturbing, seeing people in that sort of context. What were they looking for? What was the point? What was going on here? And it was quite obvious to me what was going on. There was a separation. In terms of the verse, there was a separation of mind from what belongs to it. And what belonged to it was this energy, this feeling that this young man was obviously in touch with in a certain way. It seemed a fairly beneficent feeling, but who knows how it could turn. So anyway, this is something we can look at in ourselves. We look at the feelings, we look at our sensibilities, our moods, and how they generate the world we live in. Now, I said there was a subtler way of understanding this, but I think I'll just leave that and look at the rest of the verse. Forms are inseparably conjoined with one another. Now the translator has put forms of matter in brackets, but I think forms can be not necessarily just visual forms. There can be sounds. These forms can refer to all the senses, and this is what we've got. We've got this experiencing going on, which consists not just of visual input, but all sorts of other input as well, through what we regard as the senses. So it's all going on. We discriminate particular senses, we discriminate particular forms, but really it's just a huge mass of experiencing that is going on. So matter is mind and is not element made. Actually, this relates back to what I was going to say about the first part of the verse. If we understand mind as awareness, then what belongs to awareness is what awareness is aware of. So here's a mouse. We can say this is matter, it's form. But the only reason I can say this is the mouse, this is matter, this is form, is because there's awareness of it. There's awareness of it. And this is what we often separate. We forget about the awareness and say there's simply a mouse, or simply an object, or simply matter. So this is the other separation that goes on. There's awareness, and what awareness is aware of, and we separate the two, we forget about the awareness. So what this is saying is matter is mind and not element made. So we move away from the idea that this is somehow an independent external object made up of various elements. And as enlightenment practitioners, we come back to this awareness, without which there would be no knowledge of this mouse. It's in this sense that awareness makes the object. Without awareness, there is no object. And you might have that tendency to hypothesize, well, there is the object, even if there's not any awareness of it. But that's just a hypothesis. If you come back to the direct appreciation and realization of the awareness which is happening in you right now, then you drop such hypotheses. Because when we come back to awareness, such things, the reality of such things are dropped. The unreality of such things, of such notions, is dropped. So this is a somewhat subtler level, which we come back to as enlightenment practitioners. We come back to the realization and the primacy of awareness, which isn't simply the mind, but it's mind with a capital M, itself.